How does the Plan 2 retirement system work in Washington State? In this video, we're going to talk about all things Plan 2. We're talking about people on the teacher retirement system, the public employees retirement system, and the school employees retirement system. All three systems are very similar, and the formula is the same for all of them. We're going to cover exactly how the Plan 2 formula works, what the cost of living adjustments are, what it takes to get vested, things you can do to increase your benefits, what does it cost you if you decide to retire early, a little known indexing deferral benefit that exists in Plan 2. So as you can see, we got a lot to cover, so let's dive right into it. If you're on Plan 2 here in Washington State, the formula is pretty simple. 2% for every single year you work here in Washington State, and they're going to base that total percentage on the average of your top 5 years of income. Now the key point here is it's your top 5 years, not your last 5 years. So if you find yourself working part-time or at a reduced rate, perhaps you were an admin before and you went back into the classroom towards the end of your career, they're going to look at your top 5 years. As an example, I worked for 20 years here in Washington State. 20 times 2 is 40%. I'm going to get 40% of whatever my top 5 years of service is. If it was $100,000, 40% of $100,000 is $40,000 per year. So for Plan 2, it just takes 5 years of full-time work before you get vested into the plan. Investing just means you're entitled to that benefit in the future. So if all you did was work for 5 years, quit, and never ever came back, you'd be entitled to a pension plan in the future. In this case, it'd be 10% of whatever your wage was while you worked. So while you're on Plan 2, you do have to contribute money into it, and the state kind of sets the rate across the board for everybody involved. People in the TRS retirement system pay into it at a slightly different rate than people in PERS. People in CERS also pay a different rate. So currently, the rates are between 7 and 8%. Now those rates adjust every 2 years. Now whatever they're at, that's a mandatory amount that you have no say into that goes into fund the pension. Key point here, whatever the funded amount is what you put into it. You can't put any more money into it, you can't put less, and actually it doesn't matter how much money you put into the plan, because what determines your benefit is that formula. It doesn't matter if you put in $10,000 or $100,000 into the system, only that formula matters in terms of calculating your future benefit. Now, how can you increase your benefit? There's a couple of key ways to do it. Obviously, it's that set formula. We can't control the percentage, but we can control how long we work to a degree and how much we make to another degree. If you're wanting to make more money, you can always work longer, or you can find ways to earn extra income. The income is not just your base salary, it's all of your pay. So if you decided to coach or perhaps get your national boards or get your master's, that's going to move you up on the pay scale or add extra money to your pocket, which in turn boosts your pension plan. Now, it doesn't actually matter what school district you work in. So if you wanted to coach at a completely separate school district, that pay still counts because it's coming from the state. Just make sure the state knows that when you go to collect. I found a couple mistakes a few times from other coaches where their coaching pay wasn't reported correctly to the state and they missed out on that. After we corrected it, it added a couple $100s to his pocket every single month. So don't overlook the little details here. One other little known feature that exists in Plan 2 is something known as a deferral benefit. So you only really get this if you decided to retire and hold off collecting your benefit. So let's say you decided to leave working for the state at age, say, 55. They actually give you a guaranteed 5.5% interest on your contributions. So for just leaving the money there and not taking your benefit or not canceling Plan 2, you're going to see your contribution amount you put in there rise by 5.5%. Now this, honestly, while it may sound cool, doesn't actually do anything for you. Unless you plan on canceling Plan 2 and cashing out the plan, which means forfeiting all future benefits and potentially losing thousands upon thousands of dollars in future income, it's not going to make sense. The only time it makes sense for someone to cash on Plan 2 is if you're not vested. So that pension formula we just went over, right? The 2% for every year you work times average your top 5 years, that's what they call option 1, or your full pension benefit. The amount you actually will get is kind of depending on how you want to take your pension plan. So you can take it in full, or you can take what they call a survivorship option. So what a survivorship option is, should something happen to me, can my spouse would get a portion or all of the pension that you get? So you have 3 different survivorship options available to you. You give 100% of it to your spouse, 2/3, or half of it. They're all going to come with a reduced benefit option. So you're not going to get your full benefit if you take a survivorship option. You're going to get something below that. So the option you pick is one factor in determining what that difference is. The other factor is the age difference between you and your spouse. The bigger the age gap, the more of a reduction you're going to see in this case. If your spouse is older than you, then you're not going to see as big of a reduction. So the Plan 2 retirement benefit does have cost of living adjustments built into it. So it's nothing you're going to see while you're working. However, when you're retired and collecting it, you are eligible to receive a cost of living adjustment once per year. The adjustment can be anywhere from 0 to 3% depending on what the state votes on or how the inflation works. To be eligible for COLA, you have to be retired and collecting your pension for 1 full year. COLA pays out on July 1st. So if you started your collecting your pension after that, you're going to have to wait 2 full years before you're eligible for it. The key point is to separate towards the end of June and elect a retirement date of of July 1st, that keeps you eligible for the cost of living adjustment the following year. You're able to collect your benefits depending on when you were hired and how long you've worked. So let's break it down this way. Anyone hired prior to May of 2013 can get their benefit in full at age 62 if and only if you have 30 years of service credits. You can take it at 62 with no penalties. If you're someone that were hired after May of 2013, then you're able to get your full benefits at age 65 regardless of years worked. So it doesn't matter if you have 20 years, 30 years, or 40 years, your benefit starts at 65. The only benefit you do get in your case is if you have 30 years of service credits, they do reduce the penalty amount for taking it early. And we'll touch on penalties in just a bit here. Now, if you're someone that doesn't have 30 years of service credits, in that case, age 65 is going to be your full pension option as well. Now let's talk about taking the pension early and what those penalties look like. So it's going to depend exactly on your situation and when you're hired again. For people that were hired prior to May of 2013 and actually had 30 years of service credits in, the penalty for taking it early, so before 62, so it's 2% for the first year. So if you collected at 61 versus 62, it's a 2% reduction, and then it's 3% every year before that. So if you wanted to collect at age 55, for example, which is the earliest you could, it represents a 20% reduction in total. If you have 30 years of service credits, your penalty is 5% for every year you collect before age 65. So obviously the benefits got changed a bit here and not as beneficial for the new hires. Now for anybody, regardless of hire date, who do not have 30 years service credits and you want to take the pension early, this is where it can hurt you. 8 to 9% for just 1 year, and it gradually goes up to that. And if you want to take it at age 55, you get something like only 30% of your benefit left. So they really hit you hard if you don't have 30 full years of service credits in for taking your money out early. So it's best to try to avoid that if you can. And a good reason why it's important to save on the side. One of the biggest downsides for being on plan 2, even though it's a great benefit and you're going to get a nice income from it, is there's no liquid cash here. So if all you did was work on plan 2, you're going to get a nice paycheck, but there's no money to pull out for extra emergencies. So one critical component of plan 2 is being able to save on the side of that. While plan 2 doesn't have the saving options, you can always go out on your own and elect to save elsewhere. And your employer usually makes it pretty easy. They offer things like a 403b plan, 457, or otherwise known as the deferred compensation plan. So in this video here, I break down those savings options more so you can explore those and decide which one's best to you. Whichever one you decide to use is completely up to you. The key point is just to get something started as soon as possible. That will just open up the doors for potentially early retirement and not take those penalties. Now, if you found this video helpful, make sure you give it a thumbs up so it can spread to other state employees looking for this key information. Now, before you go, make sure you grab a copy of my free book called The 7 Money Earning Mistakes Washington Teachers Make, so you can work and plan for retirement to avoid these key mistakes that can cost you thousands of dollars and force you to work longer than you probably want to. I'll see you guys next week. Remember that your future depends what you do today.